Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the analysis of YOLENO TV. I hope you're well. From wherever you're watching this channel, I want us to quickly go to Mukurweni. In Mukurweni, our focus is going to go to the former Mukurweni Member of Parliament. There's some statement here which Kabando has released, and these statements are not good news to William Ruto's 2027 re-election ambition. They are not good news. So there's something that Kabando left here on X, which I wish to take you through. Let me first of all take you through the tweet. This is what he said. We can predict with a fair level of confidence that if Ruto ever dares to vie for president of Kenya again, he won't get beyond 10% vote in the Mount Kenya East counties of Meru, Embu, and Tharaka Nithi. The situation on the ground is extremely bad. High voltage hostility for some way. That is a statement that Kabando left for us to decipher, left for us to digest. That message, of course, was sent to Ruto's camp for them to think twice on their strategy of the Mount Kenya East. 10%. So, ladies and gentlemen, in this analysis, I want us to focus on this message because we all remember that there were some plans which Ruto had made to try to contain the areas of Embu, Meru, and Tharaka Nithi. But then if this is what Kabando is saying is true, that only 10%, he can't get more than 10%, that will mean the 90% will go to the opposition. That is a huge setback, ladies and gentlemen. But first of all, before you explore this statement from Kabando, kindly support this channel by liking this video, subscribe to this channel if you're not subscribed before, and to our existing subscribers, I want to continue thanking you so much because without you, this channel won't have grown. 10% is what Ruto can get as the maximum vote support from that region, the Mount Kenya East. Why is it so? Let's get back to the facts, ladies and gentlemen. First, we have the Mbas Party. Mbas Party is one that Kiratu Murungi owns. Now, Mbas Party had offered support to William Ruto post-election. They had decided to side with the Kenya Kwanza and it became Azimio. So Ruto banked on the Mbas Party. We also saw a scenario where Kiratu Murungi complained and then he was invited to State House and then the temperature ilitulia. The expectation was that Kiratu Murungi was going to get a job. But because he didn't get a job, what he did, he decided to denounce the support he had assured William Ruto. The second thing, let's get to DP. That is Justin Muturi's party. Justin Muturi's party withdrew from the Kenya Kwanza, and that is already a party within the Mount Kenya East because we are told about 10%. So that is already a loss to William Ruto. Mithika Linturi also denounced his support for William Ruto. That means the ground in Mount Kenya East is getting more and more hostile. The last reason why that support might be hostile now, ground hostile, is because of Peter Munya. Peter Munya already issued a directive that yeye atapiga UDA vita in the Mount Kenya East. So if you look at all these top dogs, I call them top dogs because they are the people who control the narrative of the Mount Kenya East politics. They have all pronounced opposition on William Ruto. So when Kabando tells us about Ruto getting 10% peke yake, that is not far from the truth. Maybe that is what can happen. But let's look at Kithure Kindiki's card. Because Ruto banks on Kithure Kindiki after him elevating Kithure Kindiki to a deputy president. He banks on that support from Tharaka Nithi. But is that going to come from Embu and Meru also? Because with Tharaka Nithi, they have someone as a deputy president. They have Kithure Kindiki. But Meru people, do they have someone as someone senior in the government? In Embu, do they have someone senior in the government? Of course, in Embu, they have Geoffrey Ruku, the former member of parliament, Bere North, who is now the public service CS. But is that enough to have William Ruto get more votes? People talk about Justin Muturi commanding a majority of the votes in the Embu area. So because of that reality, ladies and gentlemen, we can as well believe that Kabando's statement is true, that labda Ruto atapata only 10%. But the big question is, the 90% is zitaenda kwa nani? That is another challenge. The 90%, will they go with the Rigathi Gachagua to where Rigathi Gachagua will take them to? Ama these votes zitahang too idle na eventually zipotee. All eyes are on Rigathi Gachagua, who is currently believed to hold the cards for Mount Kenya, and is going to decide who the Mount Kenya people will support in 2027. So what do you think about this prediction by Kabando? Just share your thoughts below in the comment section. What do you think about the facts from Kabando? Kabando is telling us that he can predict a 10%, vote to go to William Ruto. In Mount Kenya, when votes were held, when elections were held, the number of votes that Ruto got in the mountain, ilikuwa overwhelming. Those people supported him. More than 60%, I think more than 70% of the votes went to William Ruto. So if Ruto is to get 10% in the mountain, hapo ameumia, because of course this is Mount Kenya East, but we have Mount Kenya West. So hii Mount Kenya nyingine ndio pale ambao anajua kwamba hapati. Maybe kule akipata alikuwa anapata kama 10%. Maybe the expectation of William Ruto kwamba Mount Kenya East angepata kama 50% ama 40%. Huko wengine apate kama 10%. Yani in aggregate awenda kama 30%, 40% in total votes for Mount Kenya. The rest in Rigathi Gachagua. That was the plan. But seems like that is not going to happen. Because if Kabando can tell us that 10% ndio senda kwa Ruto, na hii ni area ambapo anategemea sana. In fact, Ruto anategemea Mount Kenya East than even the other mountain. Ndio maana alichukua deputy president kutoka Mount Kenya East with the sole intention of giving Kithure Kindiki an assignment to consolidate all the votes in the Mount Kenya East. Lakini the big question is, has Kithure Kindiki managed to do that? That's something that you need to ask yourself, ladies and gentlemen. Has he managed to do that? Is he able to contain the votes in the Mount Kenya East? This is very, very serious, ladies and gentlemen. I think this is some of the calculations which Ruto must do now before he makes any decision. Of course, he fired Justin Muturi. We can say he didn't want to fire Justin Muturi, but he fired him because he could not contain Justin Muturi anymore. He fired Mithika Lenturi, but with the Mithika Lenturi's case, I think it's out there in the public domain. And JNZs demanded that cabinet yote ifagiliwe, but when Ruto was reappointing people back and appointing fresh ones, Mithika was nowhere to be seen. So we can in that list. So we can as well say that the biggest mistake that Ruto made was when he fired Justin Muturi. But Justin Muturi was not easy to contain, so alikuwa aendi kwa cabinet. So I think we can just exempt Ruto kwa hiyo blame hapo, kusema tu kwamba it's okay here to do it because this is someone who had absconded duty. Alikuwa hakuji kwa cabinet, they can't discuss about anything matters is hiyo position yake, so it was not easy. So ladies and gentlemen, I want to just go below in the comment section and tell us what you think about this statement from Kabando. Kabando did not clinch back his seat. I think he vied on a Jubilee ticket, and Jubilee people in mountain waliangushwa wote. So Kabando alikuwa mmoja wale ambao waliangushwa wote kwa Mount Kenya. Of course Jeremiah Kioni akiwa mmoja wao, hata Sabina Chege akiwa mmoja, waliangushwa. But Sabina Chege was nominated. Jeremiah Kioni was not nominated. Kabando was not nominated. So Sabina benefited from that nomination. So ladies and gentlemen, just tell us below in the comment section what you think about this prediction from Kabando. Kabando is giving Ruto 10% peke yake Mount Kenya East. Na remember hiyo ndio region ambayo Ruto anategemea sana in the mountain. Anajua kwamba Mount Kenya East ndio watamsupport, lakini this other side of the Mount Kenya West ambapo Rigathi Gachagua anatokea, hao hawatamsupport. Hiyo ni kitu ambayo Ruto anajua. So, ladies and gentlemen, just go below in the comment section and tell us what you think about this latest revelation from Kabando or Kabando. So perhaps if you're watching this video and you've not subscribed, take 1 second and subscribe, like this video. Until we catch up again, stay safe and stay blessed.